My name is Bill Morgan. I see some new people. We meet the first Saturday of every month on creation evolution, and then we do a follow-up on Tuesday. Last Saturday we did a lesson on dinosaurs. We meet the first Saturday of every month, and so this is a follow-up. And I have even more information than I had last Saturday. We'll be talking about that, but yesterday I talked to some dinosaur experts that are doing research on it. And that's one of my favorite things to do. I'm always polite. They don't even know I'm a creationist. I don't antagonize, but I like to just talk to them and learn what they're up to. And so hopefully this lesson has even more information than last Saturday's. I had a nice half-hour talk with a dinosaur expert out of Montana. But last month we had a debate. I debated an atheist. And I have DVDs of the debate thanks to Tom. It's only $5. I'm not making any money off of it. It's also on YouTube. If you want to see it on YouTube, just type in Bill Morgan debate and you'll find it. But you can get it here as well. And saying it without arrogance, I am definitely not the most intelligent person in the world. But creation, you don't have to be, because it's like if you're playing poker, you've got a royal flush. It's just a case of playing the cards. You could play poker with the world's smartest, best poker player. But if you've got the cards, you're going to win. And I think creation is very easy to do that. And very rarely will evolutionists debate. And you will see why if you ever see a creation versus evolution debate. I don't say that with arrogance, but I've seen a lot of them. And the evidence is clearly on our side. At the end of this month, I'm going to fly to near New York City and debate a biology professor. So if anybody wants to pray for that, I would appreciate that. Really looking forward to it. Anyways, debated a very nice guy. He's Phil. He's the guy on the right. One doing the talking. And you can pick up one of those if you want. I'll even loan one to you for free if you want to just look at it and bring it back. I'm not distributing these for the money. Yes?
Is the debate at the end of this month going to be videotaped?
Yes. And I had my opponent already say in writing that I can broadcast it as much as I want. I debated a professor at USC. USC recorded it. And after the debate, he sent me an email saying, I forbid you to make copies of it. If you want to get a copy of it, I have a couple copies floating around. But it had no legal standing for that. It was not private intellectual property. But after the debate, he said that. Pardon me? Oh, man. Okay, so the debate went well. I would love to debate. If any of you know people who love the theory of evolution and will debate, I would be happy to do that. Okay, next month's meeting, which is the first Saturday of May. I think it's the second. Don't quote me on that. We're going to talk about the age of the Earth. All of the lessons are geared to be at the 6th grade level. Amen. That's where I like it. Real simple facts. You don't have to impress with PhD. But we're going to talk about that. And so today we're going to talk about dinosaurs. Very interesting topic, and a very important topic in my opinion. And we're going to begin with a trivia contest hosted by the young, talented Matthew Russell. Big round of applause, everybody. Okay. Can we do the rules, sir? We'd like everybody to stand up and take part of the dinosaur trivia contest. There's no shame, but there will be a nice prize at the end of it. All who want to play, well, you can, because you already know the answer. If you miss a question, sit down. It's the honor system. And again, there's no shame if you miss one. But I'm sure you won't cheat. Go ahead. Matthew came up with all these questions.
All right. Question 1. What dinosaur name means covered lizard? A. Triceratops. B. Dinosaurs. C. Ankylosaurs. D. Dinosaurs.
Okay, so think of your answer. A, B, C, or D. And the answer is?
D. Stegosaurus.
Okay. Again, there's no shame if you got it wrong. Okay.
Question number 2. What dinosaur name means fast feet? A. Spinosaurus. B. Triceratops. C. Velociraptor. D. Pterodon.
Just pronounce the names makes them an expert.
C.
meter. You got it? And you too? Okay, well, we have a tiebreaker. Don't feel bad. Okay, here's, can you see who kind of bombs? Okay, and we have a tiebreaker question. Oh, wait, no, we don't. I'm sorry. We have one more, then a tiebreaker.
Which of the following dinosaurs had a giraffe-like neck? A. Brachiosaurus. B. Allosaurus. C. Tortosaurus. D. Ankylosaurus.
Okay. At the same time, say it.
A.
Correct.
That's what I actually did.
Okay. And now the tiebreaker question.
The Elasmosaur had how many vertebrae in its neck?
Take a guess. Okay, what do you think? We got 12? Well, it's closer than 0. All right, well, you win the prize. Big round of applause. Again, Answers Magazine. This is by Answers in Genesis. It's on our level once again, creation.
Hey, how's it going, Bill?
And I think everyone should consider subscribing to that, Answers in Genesis. Big round of applause for Matt. You want to say anything to the group before you leave? Okay. All right. Thank you. You did a very good job. Okay. Very simple question to begin with. Did dinosaurs exist? How many think they did not? Okay. Okay. I've heard Christians over the years, a few, say that. If anyone ever run into that they're a trick, they're a deceit. There are a few people who believe that. But when I first became a Christian in the very late 1980s, creation was my foundation, but I remember going to a seminar at Costa Mesa Calvary by the Institute of Creation Research, and in my head, I was just waiting to see, do we really believe in dinosaurs? And every Christian that I run into does believe in that, and so they're not some trick of Satan, but I have heard that every now and then, so just want to resolve that. They're a fact of geology. Are they an important topic? What do you guys think?
Yes.
I think very important topic, and here's just one little story. About 5 years ago, I spoke at Woodbridge Community Church, and in a dark parking lot after my lesson, this kid was near tears. And he said, "I'm so glad you talked to us tonight about dinosaurs." He said dinosaurs were ruining his faith. That a lot of people who he respected were talking about dinosaurs living 65 million years ago, and as powerful evidence for the theory of evolution. From the age of 2 to the age of 102, people are taught, dinosaurs lived a long time ago, and a lot of people try to link that to the theory of evolution. But this high school kid was very relieved to hear that, and since then I always try to include dinosaurs in my little basic lesson. I've got some DVDs of a lot of lessons that I've given, and I do have one of my basic lessons, and I always touch on dinosaurs when I give that. And if you have a handout, your entire green sheet is on dinosaurs and the flood. One side has to do with each, because it is a crucial topic for Christians to have a good handle on. Okay, and this whole lesson is going to be on dinosaurs. I like interaction. It makes for a more fun meeting. The word dinosaur means what? Yes.
Giant lizards. Oh wait, that's Tyrannosaurus Rex. Got that mixed up.
Okay. I'm going to take a guess. You make one of the words. Anyone? Very good. Oh, sorry. It means terrible lizard. It was coined by this guy, Richard Owen, in 1842. He was an Englishman. And he was a vocal opponent of Charles Darwin. What's fun about creation is not only can strengthen your faith, you can learn a lot about history and science. There's so many fascinating things out there. This man was a big time scientist. One of the leading scientists on Earth at the time, an expert in reptiles, fish, insects, birds. He established the Natural History Museum in Britain, and universally accepted as a great scientist, but he didn't agree with Darwin's theory. And Darwin, as a fellow scientist, politely disagreed with him, right? Wrong. Here's a quote that Darwin said about Sir Richard Owen. I used to be ashamed of hating him so much, but now I will carefully cherish my hatred and contempt to the last days of my life. Is that a scientist thinking? That's someone emotionally defending their worldview. Right? If someone disagrees with one of your scientific theories, you don't get emotional about it, I wouldn't think. But this is personal with them. So I labeled him as a hater. Okay. And if anyone has comments or questions, just raise your hand and join me. But anyways, Darwin was a brilliant man, no doubt about it. A great researcher, a great writer. Naturally, I disagree with a lot of his conclusions. It didn't come close to the scientific achievements of Richard Owen. Now, has anyone ever talked about creation and evolution and someone said, well, you're not a scientist? Has anyone ever thrown that in any of your faces? This is what you can do. You can say, no, well, first off, I think everyone is a scientist. A car mechanic is a scientist. They measure voltage, they work with combustion, heat transfer, etc. Cooks are scientists, they use chemistry, heat transfer. So, just because you don't wear a lab coat doesn't mean you are not a scientist. Carpenters are scientists. They use physics, strength of materials, etc. But if somebody throws that at you that you're not a scientist, you can say, okay, was Darwin a scientist? What would they say? Yes. What was his only earned degree in? Theology. How many people didn't know that? Once again, Darwin was a smart guy. His only degree that he had ever earned was in theology. So you can ask that person, well, if you think Darwin's a scientist, his only degree was in theology. But the degrees you have doesn't pull much weight with me. The facts and the points of science you make are what should matter. Okay, you've done, and my field is, I'm a mechanical engineer, which is nice because I don't have to at least talk about that, but it doesn't make me smarter than anybody else. Do dinosaurs help or hurt the theory of evolution? What do you guys think?
I think help.
They help. But when it comes to science, it doesn't help it because there are no transitional forms. The dinosaurs show up in the fossil record as 100% what? It's about dinosaurs. No transitional forms, no explanation of how their legs evolved, their hips, their scales. They're 100% dinosaurs. No transitional forms. Just yesterday I talked, like I said, to this really smart guy for a half hour. I briefly brought up transitional forms. He was, well, creationists mangle that. Because he said, you are a transitional form between your parents and your children. Well, I think people can get into playing word games. My parents and my children are both what? Humans, right? Even if you've met my kids, they are they're wonderful humans. What?
Didn't they find all the dinosaurs at the same strata and the Earth? They don't have them at different levels over periods. They find the bulk of them at one strata, right?
Well, they define the strata by the fossils. So often the fossils indicate what the strata is. But let's be fair, they have never found a dinosaur fossil next to a human fossil. That's a good point to bring up. Well, the point is they have not found millions and millions of dinosaur fossils and very, very, very few human fossils. But one explanation could be, well, they lived at different times, right? Dinosaurs lived before humans. Another explanation is they lived at different, what? Places when the flood hit. If a flood hit now, you wouldn't expect to find humans next to polar bears. Why not?
They wouldn't have landed the same place when the flood was happening.
Right, they live in different places. A human you might not find next to an elephant because they don't live next to each other. So they either lived at different times or different places, okay? But the facts are there are no transitions for dinosaurs to explain where they came from. So in my opinion, dinosaurs hurt the theory of evolution, and there's another reason why. The theory of evolution teaches simple organisms mutated and became more complex. The simpler, there's no simple cell. People say simple cell organism. No, there's no simple cell. There are simpler cells Follow me? But nothing simple about it. They all crank out 100,000 reactions per second. They have trillions and trillions of cells or atoms working together. So there's no simple cell, but simpler to complex. Now, if a dinosaur is weighing 110 tons and is 90 foot long, is that a pretty complex organism? Right, but that's in the past, according to the theory of evolution. To me, you shouldn't have those extremely complex organisms in the past. You follow me? So there's no transitional forms, and it breaks up the simple to complex hypothesis. Okay? Any comments on that? Now, so evolutionists believe dinosaurs have bacterial ancestors. Okay? I quote this guy a lot, Dr. John Sanford. And the nice thing about scientists is they're typically very friendly and they like to talk to you. You can find them on the internet and have nice conversations. They often like to share their knowledge. Does anybody here ever run into that? This guy is another example. Had nice long talks every now and then on the phone. And he invented the gene gun. We talked about him. He's at Cornell. He said it's more likely, he doesn't believe it, first of all. He says it's more likely that dinosaurs would evolve into bacteria than bacteria evolve into dinosaurs. Because of mutations, with mutations, your genome is scrambled. You scramble your DNA, you make fewer proteins. You have less ability with each mutation. You follow me? So you would lose functions if mutations change animals and you go from complex to simple. Follow me? And that is a quote from him. But he was talking about blue whales on the phone, but same thing. You go from mutations would make good things simpler, not simpler things better. Mutations do not create brains, central nervous systems, spines, livers, etc. Okay, what is a dinosaur?
Cold-blooded reptile.
Okay, good. Appreciate the answer. You guys never seen the Flintstones? Are dinosaurs reptiles? A few weeks ago, I taught the TNT classes. I think you were there, Eric. And I said, dinosaurs are not reptiles. Well, I got a new slide. Depends who you ask. This is true. You can do the research. Like I said, a few weeks ago, I boldly said dinosaurs were not reptiles, but doing more research, it depends who you ask. Now, Saturday, we had a lot of kids, and this part lost them a little bit, but to me, this is a very important topic. Hopefully, I won't lose you. The old way they classified animals was the LINNEAN system. Where did they come up with that name, LINNEAN? And if you know? Yes?
Or the guy who invented it?
Very, very good, Bailey. Very. There he is. Linnaeus. Harold Linnaeus. Christian. He classified animals by body types. The fancy word is morphology. You know, does it have scales? Does it lay eggs? Does it have feathers? And that's how he would classify animals. It was universally accepted as the way to classify animals for a long time. Is there a new way that they're classifying animals today? Yes, there is. It's called, anybody want to take a guess? I'll give you the first three letters, C-L-A. It's called cladistics. How many people have heard of that word? Okay, well, I'll explain it to you on a nice, simple level because I'm not capable of talking over your heads. This is an exact quote from a web page on cladistics. It focuses on the evolutionary relationships rather than on morphological similarities. So they are determining if animals are related to each other based on what? Evolutionary relationships. Which one is more scientific? Linnaean or cladistics? Linnaean, because it's based on observations. So they can say now, well, birds are related to dinosaurs. Well, why? Because of cladistics. I'll explain. They're saying if one animal is said to be related to another animal, then they're related. They'll say because of cladistics. Well, what's cladistics? Well, we decided they're related to each other. Big, long, scary word, and this is how they're doing it today in classifying animals. The proof is that I say that it's true. That's not scientific. That's not inductive or deductive logic. I love the internet. I truly find pictures and then try to turn them into slides. Yes?
So basically, according to the clanistic system, we are the same species as a pine tree because we share the same bacterial ancestor.
Well, not a species, but we are related to the pine tree due to cladistics because we have an evolutionary relationship. You can say, well, what's the evidence of the evolutionary relationship? And they'll say, what, are you religious or something? No, I'm just asking a question. But you're correct. They would say, due to cladistics, humans are related to pine trees. But now you know what cladistics is, human definitions. You decide if they're related, reptiles and birds. So, most people today do say dinosaurs are reptiles because of cladistics. Reptiles and birds, do they look related to you? Reptiles are cold-blooded, birds are warm-blooded. Scales, feathers, 4 legs, 2 legs. They have a recirculating respiratory system. They have one bypass circulatory system. How many people are familiar with bird respiration? Any of you? I'm going to teach it to you real simply. It's amazing. You have a respiratory system like this. The air comes in, does a U-turn, the air comes out. Birds, and I get goosebumps because God is so great, have an incredible respiratory system. It's single pass. Incredibly efficient. They're getting so much more oxygen out of every breath than you. It passes right through them. How did that evolve? How did this system evolve into that? No explanation at all. They have no explanation of the details of how the change is happening, just that they did. Unidirectional respiration. Oh! Solid bones? Hollow bones. How did that happen? It doesn't happen by mutation and chance. Birds are the animals that evolutionists have the biggest nightmares with. They are so unique from any other type of animal. I would be misquoting if I said I knew how their digestive system worked. Okay. Well, one thing I did think about in the last week, sometimes I talk about which came first, the chicken or the egg. When I went witnessing with Mike just yesterday, I love to ask people that politely. I show them the comic book. What's the answer, Mike?
Adult, and they were male and female.
Right, you need 2 chickens. You need a male and a female, right? Same time, same place. Sometimes a person will say it was an egg. Well, you would need 2 eggs. This egg needs to have a male, this egg needs to have a female. But they got to be adult so they can take care of themselves and not just be a helpless little infant. The Garden of Eden story answers the chicken and the egg. And I explain that more in my lesson there. But I was just thinking about this. Why would a chicken sit on an egg? Think about it. I mean, it's slowing their lifestyle down. What makes them think sitting on that egg is going to do any benefit? It's because they have programmed information from the great creator, God of the universe, who has given that chicken the instinct, slow down your lifestyle, sit on that egg for a purpose. Isn't it to be marvelous? Instinct to me just cries out for creation.
They certainly don't have the intelligence. I've had those chickens. They ain't that smart.
They don't get taught it, and if they did, they'd disobey their parents probably and not sit on that egg. But why would a chicken sit on an egg if it wasn't imputed into their brain by God?
They're good mothers, though. They're good mothers. Chickens are good moms.
Yes. Okay, this is off a UC Berkeley website. It's not a Christian website. Understanding evolution. Statistics is a particular method of what? Relationships among organisms based on the idea that members of a group share a common evolutionary ancestry. He's just saying it's all in the mind, it's not in the field of science. So that's enough on cladistics. So you can think a deeper on what. How many people found that somewhat interesting? I really, really did. Spiritual war going on, and most people don't even know it. A war for people's thoughts on how they got to be here. It's not an open-minded debate at all. But my goal, and hopefully yours, is to reach the people who are open-minded, but have just never heard the creation side. There's a lot of them out there. Yes?
How do you answer that question? when they say, are you religious? Because that seems like they're making it personal, like when you're a young kid, you get an argument, and you're losing it, and then you call the kid fat, because you're losing the fight, so make it personal. Like they're making like, they don't want to give you an intelligent answer, so they accuse you of being something.
What I say is, I say, yes, I'm not the least bit ashamed about this, but we're not talking about religion, we're talking about letter T. What? Truth. We're trying to find out what's true. Sometimes with an atheist, and I always encourage, you've got to be polite and kind when you talk to the people who disagree with you. You're not smarter than them, you're not arrogant, you got to be polite. I'll ask them, what's the most important thing in life? They might say, well, you're going to say God. No, it's not God. It's truth. If God is true, that makes that the most important thing. If God is fake, what are you guys doing here tonight? Why are you tithing? You follow me? So truth is the goal, and I believe God is true. But they want to bring up religion. It's not having to do with religion. It has to do with whether it's true or not. But they'll often want to get off the debate on logic and evidence and try to attack your personal beliefs. Every time I debate, who always brings up religion the most? The opponent, constantly, as he did as well.
What else do they say?
They'll say most people believe in it. This guy said, go on Google and internet, you can find evidence for it. He was looking through his index for explanations. They'll try to use natural selection. That's on my lesson. And I cover natural selection. This is natural selection, since you asked me. Furry dogs survive in Alaska. Hairless dogs don't. Does that prove dogs have bacterial ancestors? No, absolutely not. So, natural selection is if you've got the right equipment, you survive. If you don't, you die. It does not give you brains, hearts, lungs, livers, kidneys, knees, etc. So, anyways, well, when I was little, I was taught dinosaurs were not reptiles. I remember that. They were similar, but not the same. And this is what I taught a few weeks ago at TNT. Because sure, dinosaurs had scales and laid eggs, but they had different jaws and hips than reptiles do today. This is from 3 weeks ago. Dinosaurs' legs go underneath their body like a dog or a horse. Reptilian legs go out to the side. And they have a different type jaw than dinosaurs, reptiles and dinosaurs. But today, because of cladistic, people do say they are reptiles. Okay. Any comments or questions on that?
Were dinosaurs cold-blooded?
There's debate on that.
Oh,
Based upon the tracks when they were running, some people said, hey, for them to have this kind of stride, they were warm-blooded. So there's debate on that. But one reason there's debate is if you come up with something new, you could earn a PhD. If you repeat something that's old, you're not going to earn a PhD. That's one reason there's so many different things regarding dinosaurs. But there is a debate. I think the majority do teach today that they were reptiles. Yes?
To make a comment on birds and dinosaurs, I have this one book of Dinosaurs by Design. Well, it was talking about how this one dinosaur looks so much like the ostrich, but how her hips are entirely different because, like, the dinosaur we're talking about, it has lizard hips, while the dinosaur that has that dinosaur has hips that resemble lizards more than birds, while there's like Ankylosaurus and Stegosaurus has hips that resemble birds, but that wouldn't exactly be right to involve into a bird because it doesn't look as much like it.
Right.
So therefore, that's also evidence that birds are not like related to dinosaurs and dinosaurs not related to birds.
Right. And dinosaurs are lizard-hipped. Dinosaurs are bird-hipped, but none of the hips that come out to the side.
I got it. I already did it.
That's another
I already got it.
subclassification of dinosaurs and their types of hips. Well, most dinosaurs were the size of about a dog. Most of them were not huge like that Argentinosaurus, which I had never heard of until about a week ago. So there's a lot of different types out there. The smallest dinosaur was how small? Take a guess. 18. About the size of a chicken. Microcircumference. Wouldn't that be a cool town? It's like a fine animal. Okay. Now, why were some dinosaurs so big? Good witnessing question. Okay. To get really big, you got to be old. What do reptiles do until they die?
Grow.
So how could a dinosaur be so big?
Live a long time.
They lived a lot longer than they do today. The Bible teaches humans could live up to 969 years. Perhaps the animals could as well. If the reptiles could live to be 900 years, they could be gigantic. Today, people don't live that long. We don't see the gigantic reptiles anymore. Can you absolutely prove that? No, but it makes sense. You see a huge dinosaur, there's no doubt it's an older dinosaur that lived a long time to be 90 foot long. So that's a possibility. Reptiles grow until they die, but they used to live longer. Any comments? Questions? Yes?
The Galapagos turtles live a long time, but do they reach, are they continually growing too? I think they grow, their longevity is over 100 years.
Yes, they do. They reach about 100 years. And during my debate, I had pictures of the Galapagos turtles in my PowerPoint. They're huge. Some of them looked like they were about 4 feet tall, some of them. Some of them had longer necks, etc. But bigger than any tortoises we've seen here. Yes?
From the evidence of the fossils, how large are the fossils?
From what I remember and read, 90 feet long.
90, so that doesn't make any sense.
Yes, yes. And the blue whale gets close to that. So about 90 foot long for some of them. Yes?
What's your opinion why God didn't have to go on the ark? Some of them.
That's a set of slides. It might be the next set of slides.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, first let's talk about what killed the dinosaurs. Why? What are you, religious or something? Don't you believe in science? I got a picture of what killed the dinosaurs. Brand new color slide. Notice I try to never shine it in your eyes, even though people believe the cartoon drawing of the ape man becoming a man, but nobody believes this one. Okay, the most common ancestor of what killed the dinosaurs is what? Meteor. What killed the dinosaurs is an instant witnessing question. You could say, what killed the dinosaurs? Meteor. Well, why do you believe that? 99% of the people, bless their hearts, will say, I don't know, that's what I was told. Right? Good for them. You know, you can't be an expert in every field, but most people have no answer. That's just the standard answer. It was meteors. Well, first let's have some fun trivia. It's got nothing to do with creation versus evolution. I find it interesting though. What's the difference between a meteor and an asteroid? You know?
A meteor well, first an asteroid is a huge body of rock that orbits between a certain area and basically keeps its own orbit path. It doesn't normally get out of orbit. It doesn't normally hit other planets. And a meteor first of all, asteroids are made of rock, and meteors are made out of ice and rock, and other things as well, like iron. And second of all, meteors don't exactly have their own orbit. They're basically just, I don't know how to put this, but they basically just run, and when it gets too hot, it's time.
You get this, Tom? Okay. Well, my answer is not as impressive as yours. My answer is size. Meteors are smaller than asteroids. Typically they say 10 meters. Maybe yours is true, but this is what I find a very good answer. You like astronomy?
Not as much as I do like sharks and dinosaurs. Basically, I'm sorry, here, and I didn't make it collaborate. I probably wouldn't have made it correctly, but like dinosaurs and like yeah.
Look at her mom. Her mom's so proud. Big round of applause for Baby. She's teaching next month. Now, what's the difference between a meteor and a meteorite?
Meteorite's smaller.
One hits the earth.
Right. Which one hit the earth?
Meteor.
Right. You will never find a meteor on Earth. Definition, once it hits the Earth, it is a meteorite. The meteor is flying through space and it's called a meteorite when it lands on the Earth. They did nothing to do with creation, but fun stuff, I know. Many theories on what caused dinosaurs to go extinct. These are just a few. Meteors, asteroids, volcanoes, global cooling. Remember Carl Sagan? Nuclear winters. Everybody was scared the Earth was getting too cold in the early 70s. Let me tell you some fun stuff. People have used dinosaur extinction to raise fear in order to get something that begins with the letter F. Funding. They did it with a nuclear cooling. Oh, this is what killed the dinosaurs. We got to fund and we got to research about why the Earth is getting colder. Now we got to fund, we got to do research on why the Earth is getting warmer. Okay? Mammals ate the dinosaur eggs. Greenhouse effect from methane, which is also global warming. It caused dinosaurs to go extinct. We need billions to research this stuff. I heard Al Gore just got snowed out of 2 global warming conferences in late March. You guys heard that? Okay. Yeah. This is just temporary. Oh, quick word on that. We had Danny Faulkner come to our group, and he stayed at my house. We went to a Dodger game, so we got to talk about a lot of things. I asked him about global warming, and he says, well, here are the facts. If you wanted to find out the temperature from the 1920s, you got to get data from the 1920s. The best data was collected at airports. Then they would get data from the 30s and the 40s. What could happen if you keep measuring the temperature at an airport? Could potentially increase because you're having more jet, more aircraft, more pollution, more concrete, and cities being built up. Since 1998, he told me they now measure the temperature of the Earth. They can map the entire surface of an ocean and measure the surface temperature of the ocean. Incredibly brilliant minds doing this. Since 1998, what has the surface temperature of the oceans been doing? Been going down. And that's a much better indicator of temperature than what LAX was recording in the 1920s. Okay. So how did they get the data is an important question for scientists to ask. Okay, starvation, supernova caused deadly radiation, acid rain, continental drift, climate, or disease, many other reasons. But I don't think they included the best. First, suppose there used to be 1 billion dinosaurs, and suppose we have dug out, say, 1,000. Do we know what killed the dinosaurs we never found? No idea. There's no observational evidence. But every dinosaur that's been dug up is found in what type of rock? Sedimentary rock. What is sedimentary rock? Rock deposited by water. Now, Christians have a wrong view quite often about the flood. They think it was a nice little drizzle and it just got deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, imagine you're a big, strong dinosaur and you're getting wetter and wetter and wetter. You say to your wife, hey, Mabel, let's go to that hill. Or there is no hill, and you eventually drown. You become a fossil buried in sedimentary rock? No, you become mush and decay in no time. These poor helpless animals got buried by mountains of mud, rock, and water. You see, the flood was the fountains of the deep erupting as well as the rain. You drive down the freeway to Indian Wells or Lancaster, you go through a cut and you see all the strata. Ask yourself, what caused all those little layers of strata? Well, if the whole Earth were churned up in water solution and settled out, you get strata. Go to the beach and dig a deep hole, you see strata of sand. You guys ever done that? And it's all parallel. How could it stay parallel for millions of years? It's rapid deposit, in my opinion. So anyways, you're digging through sedimentary rock, you come across a crushed, usually they're crushed, dinosaur. Did that thing die from a meteor? Why not?
It's not a good one. It's in the dirt.
It's a sedimentary rock. So I've talked to people and I'd say, well, if meteors kill the dinosaurs, why are they buried in sedimentary rock? You know what they say sometimes? Well, the meteor caused the flood. Well, what killed the dinosaur? The flood did. They're in sedimentary rock. And if you go on a case-by-case basis with the dinosaurs, hey, what killed that dinosaur in Canada? It was trying to cross a river and it got buried. Okay. What killed that one in South America? Oh, this earthen dam must have buried it. On a case-by-case basis, they say that one died from a flood. That one died from a flood. But universally, what do they say killed a dinosaur? The meteors. So decide for yourself whether to do that. I don't think they like the conclusion that it died from a flood. If the dinosaurs died from a violent global flood, were they alive 1 minute before that flood began? Were humans alive at the time of Noah's flood? Does that give a good reason to believe that dinosaurs lived when man lived? If they died from the flood and humans were alive, they were alive at the same time as humans. Okay? You know, Tom Saturday, Tom's an expert on the La Brea tar pits, future speaker, you don't know that yet.
No.
He is an expert. He's written a book on the La Brea tar pits. And I do remember you said they found no dinosaurs in the tar pits, correct? Okay. But he is a future speaker. Looking forward to it. Well, the dinosaur experts say we went extinct 65 million years ago. By Sarah Thompson, my favorite. Be a good linebacker, wouldn't he? Run up the middle on that guy, huh? Well, this guy could be a college from years, and he says, come on, the Bible doesn't talk about dinosaurs. No peer pressure. Who would agree that the Bible is silent when it comes to dinosaurs?
I disagree.
You disagree. How many would agree with that? Okay. All right. I respect that. Most people would say that. I always say decide for yourself. I believe the dinosaurs are mentioned in the Bible,
Joe,
but they're not called dinosaur. They're called behemoth
Leviathan.
and leviathan. Right. Now, the word dinosaur was coined by who? What was that great scientist's name? Heard it over here. Richard Owen. The Bible was translated in 1611, so they have a different word for it. Okay? That's why the word dinosaur is not in there. In Job 40, God tells Job to what? Look at behemoth. Did they coexist according to that verse? Why? How can you look at something that wasn't there? Oh, you must be a literalist. Just kidding. Because you believe the Bible. Well, that's what it says. You can't look at something if it's not there.
Yeah, question.
Sure.
This was after the flood.
Yes, absolutely.
So dinosaurs, the flood killed the dinosaurs.
Ah. The flood killed the dinosaurs that we dug up. Okay? I believe there were dinosaurs after the flood. Okay? And that's when Job was. The flood didn't kill every dinosaur. It killed the dinosaurs that we dug up, in my opinion. Okay? It's a very good question. So, they're told to look at it. And some people say Job's not literal, it's symbolic. Behemoth was symbolic. Because I wanted to impress you, and I said I could beat up Bart Simpson. I want to impress you how tough I am. I could beat up Bart Simpson. What would you think about me? What are you talking about, beating up someone that's symbolic, that doesn't even exist? In Job 40, God is teaching Job to be humble by how great God's power is. So suppose God's talking to Job and saying, I can control behemoth. And behemoth is some mythical nonsense animal that never existed. Job's going to say, he's hallucinating, right? It had to be a literal animal to make the impression upon Job that God is trying to make. Okay? Now my Bible, my New American Standard, at the bottom of behemoth says, perhaps hippopotamus. If your Bible says that, decide for yourself. I crossed it out in red pen. That's my next slide.
I have a question on Job.
Yes.
Is that considered a historical book, or is it just a story? So maybe the story of Job could have been before the flood.
From what I've read, Job is post-flood. Okay.
But does it have a historical value? Maybe the story was written after the flood, but does it have historical value?
Okay, here's a good point. If something is literal or not. This is Bob. I just met him tonight. So I said, I'm going to quote Bob. Bob is buying everyone In-N-Out burgers after the lesson. Now, if I say I quoted Bob, it's either literal or an absolute lie on my part. But it's definitely not symbolic. Okay? Follow me? So if I quote something, it's either literally true or an absolute lie. Never symbolic if you use quotes. Job is full of quotes from God, just like Genesis chapter 1 is full of quotes. So to me, this is either literal or a lie, but definitely not symbolic. And a lot of people want it to be symbolic because they don't like the implication of it. So I would say it's historical due to the quoting, just like Genesis chapter 1 is.
Yeah, but God was before the flood too, that's what I'm getting at.
Right, but Job, I'm not a biblical scholar,
Yeah,
teaches that Job was post-flood. So I'll go with that. And Job was after the flood. Okay. And someone here,
Yeah.
Eric, you might have a reason why was Job post-flood.
Actually, I'm not really sure. I mean, that's the first time I've heard that. I heard Job was the first Bible book actually written.
There is.
I don't know when
Okay.
I don't know when the events occurred.
Okay.
That's
Anyone
why
else?
I'm making the argument though, that it's not, the story is still the story, whether it's pre-flood or post-flood.
Right.
The names of his friends are Edomite names, and that's post-flood because
All right.
Esau is
There's a,
brother of Jacob.
Great. Thanks for coming. This was fun. With interaction, you can learn more. Edomite names. Great. And I'm the only person who likes his friends. Anyone else? They sat for a week with the guy and didn't say a word. They did mean well. Their advice was bad, but they cared about him. Bleeding heart. Okay. What type of tail did behemoth have? A cedar tree. Cedar tree was the biggest tree that they knew about in those ancient days. Is that a cedar tree?
More like a house.
Was behemoth a hippopotamus? Well, here's more evidence. That's not a cedar tree. That's a cedar tree. No animal alive today has a tail like a cedar tree. Behemoth was a dinosaur, and my green sheet is even more reasons why. We'll press on because of time. Now, true or false, dinosaurs have been found in sedimentary rock in Antarctica. How many say, no way, there's no dinosaurs in Antarctica? How many think there are dinosaur fossils in Antarctica? It's true. The most manly, and I guess you can say womanly, fossil hunters are in Antarctica. Any amens to that? These are hardy souls. Glacialsaurus is a dinosaur fossil found in Antarctica. Guess how much of it was found? Part of a foot, ankle, and leg. Think about that. Now first, I will accept that it was a dinosaur. I have no problem with that. But how do they know how the head, the ribs, and the arms, and the tail look like from that? Well, they make a lot of assumptions. They say, well, it's similar to this other dinosaur that we have a full, but it's got to be a different dinosaur. Why?
That word again.
Funding, PhD, right. The guy makes an argument, no, this is a unique dinosaur because I want to earn a PhD. Well, I have ambition, but as a creationist, I don't care. I'm happy that they are promoting they found a dinosaur in Antarctica. I'll tell you why. Guess where he was found? Once again, creation is so much fun. Sedimentary rock. Guess where geographically? Exactly, 13,000 feet above sea level. I say praise the Lord. I love it. In Antarctica, you get a dinosaur buried in sedimentary rock 13,000 feet above sea level. Ask an atheist for the mechanism for that. Okay? There he is. He's thinking about it. How did a dinosaur get buried in sedimentary rock in Antarctica at an elevation of 13,000 feet? First, we'll talk about in Antarctica. Where does it hardly ever snow? Antarctica gets very little snow, about 5 inches a year. Why is that? It's too cold. It doesn't snow when it's extremely cold. It snows when the seasons change just a little bit. I got from Buffalo. Oh, it's so cold there. It's not that cold. We get a lot of snow because we got a warm lake to the west. You get cold air over a warm lake. That's when you get snow. But anyways, here's the guy who found it, Matt Cave. Hey, I salute him if he's digging fossils in Antarctica. Here's what he said about why it was in Antarctica. Exact quote. For whatever reason, they still were hanging out on the Antarctic continent. He's got no mechanism for it. They would have lived in a different Antarctica, one that was warm and wet, right? It couldn't have been that cold for these big reptile-like animals to live. They needed to be warm. Now, known as Mount Kirkpatrick, he said the area was once a soft riverbed. Do Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. God made the expanse and separated the waters that were below the expanse and the waters which were above, and it was so. Basically put, we could have had a greenhouse effect. That between the sun and the earth was a lot of water, the heat could get through and the heat couldn't escape. That's how you can get woolly mammoths in Siberia, dinosaurs in Antarctica. Follow me? That could account for it. It's a mechanism. But everyone would have to agree that Antarctica was different in the past than it is today. After the flood, the expanse and the firmament was lost. Yes?
Someone who believes in evolution in the old Earth, where they think that, a longer timeline would allow for more continental drift.
That's perhaps true, but it would probably grind up any dinosaur fossils in it by pushing it that far. That would be my best guess. Okay. That's how I, yes?
The expanse and what's the version about the water canopy?
Right, that's a possible, I would never say it's 100% proven, but it's a possible explanation. And then you got to raise it up 13,000 feet. That would perhaps crush it too, much more than it is. Okay, but we're going to talk about that too. Now, how did it get on a mountain? Psalm 104, verse 6. One of my favorite verses in the Bible. Great geology. You covered it with the deep, and this is on your green page. You covered it, meaning the earth with the deepest with the garnet. The waters were standing above the mountains. You, Ross, would disagree with that. Not all the mountains, but I believe all the mountains. At your rebuke, they fled, the waters. At the sound of your thunder, they hurried away. This is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. The mountains rose, the valleys sank to the place which you established for them. It talks about mountains raising. Even evolutionists admit the mountains were lower in the past. How many people have been to Yellowstone? How many remember the Grand Tetons? The Grand Tetons are huge mountains outside Yellowstone. On the very top of the highest mountain is a different colored rock. Guess what type of rock it is? Sedimentary rock. Right on top of the highest mountain is a different color. You read the chart, and it says millions of years ago, these mountains were underwater. Well, I agree they were underwater. That's how you get sedimentary rock, but I don't believe it was millions of years ago. And the Bible talks about mountains raising after the flood. Yes?
Oh, when we were talking about the other thing before, the earth, was it possible too that at the time of the flood, God put it on an axis?
Absolutely.
Where it was more straight up, and
Yes.
it's thinking this way.
Yep, it could be. With the greenhouse effect, you don't need the axis. The axes are great today. I used to work with a really smart guy from Canada. He was a farmer. And I said, Al, how can you grow crops in a short season? He said we had longer days. Their crops grew faster. That's an advantage of a tilted earth. Longer days means you can grow more crops. If the earth were straight up and down on the axis, you'd have a very small area where you could grow crops. It would be too cold on the poles. So, amazing God, isn't he? I mean, words can't describe it.
So did you answer why Owen didn't take dinosaurs on that?
Not yet, but I'm getting there. It's okay. Okay, hang in there. Good question, glad you asked. So, once again, evolutionists think dinosaurs lived 230 to 65 million years ago and went extinct. Creationists think dinosaurs and man coexisted, at least I do, and that dinosaurs were created about 6,000 years ago and went extinct. What do you think that stuff is? What does that look like? Scrambled eggs? Okay, this is fun stuff. Soft tissue, blood vessels. 2005, a researcher, Mary Schweitzer, found this. This is and since Saturday, I called a museum. I'm not going to say the name of it, not that it's confidential, but I talked to a museum. He didn't want to give me his name at first because he thought I might be a reporter or a counter dinosaur research lab. And hope, this might be on YouTube. I don't want to embarrass the guy. He eventually did tell me his name. We became good buddies. But he told me a lot about this. And he said the fossil was so big, they had to crack it to get it out. And when they cracked it, they found stuff that looked like soft tissue. The person who found it was named Mary Schweitzer. She came out and said, I found soft tissue that sure looks like blood vessels and blood in a T-Rex. Were her colleagues happy with her and said, hey, good, girl, Mary, I'll get you. Oh, no, they said. This woman was accused of bad research, falsifying research, sloppy lab work. Even this nice guy that I talked to the other day, well, her lab techniques probably weren't that good. They can't find soft tissue in a dinosaur, right? Supposedly they went extinct 65 million years ago.
They're not real scientists, they're not.
Well, that's what they said. A different lab that I talked to, they said, well, the rock that she found it in was really, really solid rock. So that could have kept it preserved all that time. So they're scrambling. They're taking on her research, but over time, they've cut into more dinosaur fossils and they're finding more and more soft tissue. So Mary Schweitzer has been vindicated for coming out and saying it's soft tissue. Well, the guy I'm talking with has been researching this for a long time. Politely, I asked him a question because they say, we're not sure it's blood. Politely, I said, well, couldn't any crime lab seen in America find out within an hour if it's blood or not? Interesting. My sister-in-law is a geneticist. She said they can find out at a crime scene instantly if it's blood or not. They've had this dinosaur tissue for years, and they're still not coming out and saying it was dinosaur blood. I asked the guy, and I said, I guess when you come up with your conclusions, you'll either get fired or win a Nobel Prize, right? They are so terrified to come out with it, they're testing, and they're thinking, well, maybe the chemicals we use to analyze it, it wouldn't work with crime scene investigation. I feel it's clearly blood, and they don't know what to make out of it. Okay, so their question is, how could soft tissue be preserved in a 68 million year old fossil? Any answers? Maybe it came from another animal. They broke the bone and they saw it in there. Some bird didn't fly by and, make a mess out of it. I think that's a condescending comment. They said it came from bacteria film. Once again, this is 2009. Any laboratory can find out whether it's blood or a film. Okay? Somehow it's been amazingly preserved for 68 million years. Like the rock is just so solid.
Scientific years, so they're not really the same years we use.
Dog years.
Because when I was in school, it was only 15 million, so they're using a different clock.
How old do you want it to be? But never would they say what? It ain't that old. Because that upsets their paradigm. This gentleman said in 3 weeks they might have a conclusion on whether it's soft tissue or not. He's not going to have a conclusion. We need more funding. We need more funding. And I think he's worried about his career. He comes out and says it is soft tissue. Okay, I told this at my debate. Anybody go to my debate here? Okay, you got to bear through this same joke, okay? I like the joke, though. There once was a man in a small town who was convinced he was dead. Everybody in the small town kept saying, you are not dead. And he goes, yes, I am, I'm dead. They said, okay, we're going to get the world's smartest psychiatrist from Harvard to come out and convince you that you are not dead. So they fly the guy out. He said, sir, are you dead? He goes, yes, I am dead. The guy gets out a knife and he cuts his finger. No, he said, I'm sorry. Do dead men bleed? He goes, no, dead people don't bleed. So the psychiatrist gets out a knife and cuts his finger and he starts bleeding. The man said, I was wrong, dead people do bleed. The fact is he is set in his conclusion. He doesn't care about the evidence. These people are convinced dinosaurs went extinct 68 million years ago. They don't care about any evidence that might shake that out. The evidence has to be wrong if it affects their conclusion. But hopefully we meet open-minded people. So, were dinosaurs on the ark? How many people think they were? I think they had to be. All land animals were on the ark. If the flood killed the ones that we find, the few that survived were on the ark. Well, how could they fit? Very good. You put babies on. Let's talk about logistics. I'm going to say a word you don't expect to hear in church. They eat less. They drink less. They poop less. Right? You got to think about that. You judge a society by how it handles its sewage. Amen? Okay? And they sleep more. They have a whole life reproduction ahead of them. If you take a 110-ton dinosaur on an ark, is that smart? For no other reason, it's an old dinosaur. It's not going to have as many years of reproduction. You take the babies. I believe they walked off the ark. The climate was not as good for them. Post-flood, no more canopy, and they eventually went extinct. So I do believe they were on the ark and they went extinct afterwards. Okay? Every society has legends of dragons, whether you're English or Chinese, German, Japanese. Every culture has legends of dragons. Perhaps they were real animals passed down through oral history. Okay, dinosaur fossils.
I got a quick question.
Sure.
How do you know that the babies could have been that small? I think, like an elephant or something like that, their babies aren't that small. So couldn't you have a dinosaur that starts out fairly large?
They found dinosaur eggs,
Yeah.
and the average dinosaur was about the size of a dog. So based upon the eggs, and you add a year to that, they wouldn't be having any trouble fitting them onto the ark. Okay. So,
Dinosaurs are not mammals.
no.
They're
Definitely not mammals. They come from eggs. They have found dinosaur eggs, fossils of them, dinosaur waste, things like that.
Some mammals lay eggs.
Statistics or LINNEAN? Right. LINNEAN did a good job, but there's always things that fall through the cracks when you try to come up with definitions. Good point.
What
Yes?
happens if Turkey let people go up there and scientists in what we think possibly is the ark? Would they be able to tell if there was dinosaur feces and poop in there and other animals and hair? Our laboratories would be able to do a lot of stuff.
Well, I'm friends with a guy named John McIntosh. He's climbed Ararat, I think, 11 times. A lot of I am going to have him speak. A lot of people have a misconceived notion that they don't let people on the ark. On the mountain Ararat. They have. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes they do. He's climbed it many, many times. He's done a lot of research. He's done aerial surveys. And I'm not misquoting him. He knows Ararat research perhaps better than anybody on Earth. He says, as of now, they haven't found anything yet. So that's interesting to know. They've done a lot of looking, haven't found anything yet. And they do let them up every now and then. Sometimes it's a case of the payola, but they do get up there every now and then. It depends on the mood of
Is there something out there?
He hasn't found it, and he's spent a lot of time and effort on the mountain. And he's in touch with people who are climbing the mountain. And if you email me, he's always given post updates on ARC research, and he'll email you. Do you know John McIntosh?
I've seen him speak, and
Yes.
I like him a lot.
Yes. So if you email me, I'll get you on his list, and it's interesting to see what they're up to.
Well, where did that idea come from then?
That is at Ararat.
That there's an ark up there?
Well, once again, I kind of tease people want to earn PhDs that are evolutionists. Christians want to sell books too. And they might take a little bit of data and stretch it into a book and a speaking tour. So we have to be good with our research too as well. But if you wrote a whole book on we haven't found anything, it's not as exciting as, oh, maybe, look at this blurry image from a spy plane in 1944. They've mapped it pretty well. And the turds aren't as bad as a lot of people think they are. I'll let you people go on. But it was a good question, very good question. Here's Velociraptor again. Feathered dinosaurs are in the news all the time. It's always good to start with the data. They found bumps on the forearm. They have never found a feather. People will say they're cool knobs, but that's not debated. They never find it. Dinosaur, that young man pronounced it better than me. No feathers were found. It was later admitted by the guy who found it, Zhu Xing, and that's National Geographic. So you see these front pages of Science and Discover with dinosaur fossils with feathers, or dinosaurs with feathers. Why would they possibly put a dinosaur with feathers on the front page of their magazine? To sell magazines. That's a big seller. Our job is to try to get to the data and see what it actually is. Anytime you come up with an evolution argument, I recommend going to answersingenesis.org. They almost always have a rebuttal, sometimes 20 rebuttals to the so-called evidence. And it's a wonderful website, answersingenesis.org. It's on your bookmark. And you can grab more bookmarks too on the way out if you want. Almost all the quotes I get off that. And then I try to find it on the original source. So a guess? One small region of China, time after time. Why would they claim to find them? Money. People come, spend money there. Alan Fiducia is a big-time evolutionist, a big-time bird expert. He doesn't believe it. He says they're fakes. Anyone can make a good profit off these. And then he says the reports are anatomically and paleontologically unsound and misleading. And he's a bird expert and a dinosaur expert. Not all evolutionists believe in the feathered dinosaur theory. So, were man and dinosaurs created at the same time? This is the fourth commandment, 6 what? You shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. 4 and 6 what? The Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Now, if those days were billions of years long, the labor unions would have had a fit in ancient Israel. I'm not working 6 billion years and getting 1 day off. You follow me? This was a normal day. Historical Hebrews always believed it to be literal. If you meet someone who believes the days of Genesis were millions or billions of years long, ask them politely, do you believe the 10 Commandments are literal? This one is a big nightmare for them to understand about the days of creation. They believe the days are billions of years. Okay?
Just a question.
Yes?
Yeah, but the Bible also says for God 1 day is like 1,000 years.
Yes.
So how?
Very good. Your blue sheet talks about the days of Genesis, and it's a very good question. And at the bottom is that exact quote, 2 Peter 3:8. Okay? And this is a good question, but it comes up constantly, and Christians need answers to that. In 2 Peter 3:8, it says, a day is as 1,000 years, as 1,000 years is a day. They're not talking about creation, they're talking about time. It means nothing to God. They're talking about God's patience for people to repent. Because the second we become a Christian, right, it's like, okay, come now, God. Well, your neighbor ain't ready yet, right? Let's wait for God's timing. 2 Peter 3:8 talks that time is meaningless to God. But what about us? Time is everything to us, and God communicates time to us and sets up our work week on that way. That's why we have a 7-day week. There's no astronomy reason for a 7-day week except the 10 Commandments. Okay? You were saying they want to do a 10-day week, but we don't have time to get into that.
Yes.
Okay, I missed it. Future lesson. The end. Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay, Mike, you want to? Yes.
I've been wanting to find out how much of the dinosaur skeleton have any
Excellent question.
complete skeletons.
Excellent question. One of the biggest dinosaurs is called Supersaurus. Have you heard of that one, Bailey?
Yeah.
Do you know how much fossil they actually found? Don't
I
forget.
don't know exactly, but I know not much.
Right.
It might be just a larger larger Brachiosaurus, but they're not sure. They're just concluding that it's a new dinosaur because the bones are really big with this head. But I believe it's parts of the leg, is it?
I believe part of the shoulder. Supersaurus, they have a huge drawing. What they actually find, a chunk of shoulder, and it could be Brachiosaurus. Now, T-Rex, most of the T-Rex are bits and pieces. But they did find a complete T-Rex. And it's a very interesting political story. It was in possession of an Indian tribe. And I believe it was the Chicago National History Museum. Came and bought it for $5,000. And a lot of people came by and said, whoa, 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 rip off. They went to court, and the museum said, hey, we paid it, they sold it. But it wasn't politically correct to rip them off like that, and the Indian tribe won, even though they legally bought it. So they have found complete dinosaur fossils, like the T-Rex. T-Rex is a good old American fossil, lousy boxer with those short little arms. Some people think it was a vegetarian because of those front arms. I mean, you don't want to lead with your face. But they have found complete ones, but most of them are bits and pieces. And again, you find a little bit of a shoulder, you don't call it a Brachiosaurus. You come up with a new one, because that's human nature. Pride. Yes?
So, like, a lot of Christians I've talked to, they think, well, God could have planted the seeds, and then, like, because I believe, like, you know, if he said there's a right way, it was, you know, all or whatever, etc. But a lot of Christians I've heard,
That God planted what? You
Like
said,
he created like the seeds, like, and that's why there is some evolution. Like God started the works, like, you know.
like bacteria, and then had
Not from that far, not like a Big Bang theory, but from like, you know, God planted a grass seed, he planted a tomato seed, and you know, mustard seed, so forth, and like a, you know, a baby giraffe, you know, it wasn't build a big giraffe.
Mhm. Well, with the chicken and the egg, earlier I said it, the people I really respect are the people who work with their hands and they're street smart. My dad never went to college. He claims he hasn't read a book since college, or since high school, but he reads journals, magazines. I think he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And whenever he has a philosophy, my world stops. I can't wait to hear his theory. Now, I'm always quoting my dad. We're coming back from golf, and he said, out of the blue, son, Adam and Eve had to be adults. Time stood still. I said, why is that, Dad? He said, because babies are helpless. To me, that makes all the sense in the world. No matter what you believe, there had to be a first human being at one time. We've all seen one-day-old babies. Lovable, right? They can't do anything. They can't lift their heads. They're completely dependent on parents. So it makes sense that the first humans were mature, responsible adults. They could take care of their own affairs, reproduce, and then take care of their babies. The first rodents had to be adults. A one-day-old rodent can't take care of itself, it would starve. So once again, the Garden of Eden story gets better and better explanation as you look at the details. Male and female, same time, same place. You might think this is blasphemous. I don't think God could have used evolution to create. Just think of reproduction. We'll keep it G-rated, sexual reproduction. For the reproduction equipment to work, that has to be fully functional. But the muscular system has to be fully functional. The circulatory system has to be fully functional. The digestive, the nervous, the skeletal, you follow me? You can't do that by bits and pieces to support the reproductive system. You need food to be there, the temperature, the oxygen. Instant people with instant bodies, instant ecosystem, takes very little faith. So that's what I believe, that God created it exactly like the Garden of Eden story. Instant male, instant female. Yes?
It would have been pretty tough for a baby to name all the animals.
Yes. Right. And you know, it's possible he did nothing, or Adam did nothing more than name them as they are in Genesis 1, beasts of the field, birds, fish. Didn't necessarily name every beetle. Not the rocky group. Yes?
Throw it out as just food for thought, but I think the world was created in that 7 days was eternity, an eternal 7 days, because after sin entered the world, we were kicked out of it. So we're living in the earth that's finite now, and then we're going to go back to eternity. So something to think about. The 7 days was God's 7 days in eternity, which could be possibly different than our days after we were kicked out because of sin.
But the instructions of Exodus 20, I just take literally. If I make a mistake, I'm in pride of me.
But then that also goes with for God, a day is 1,000 years and 1,000 years is a day. I'd like to email you some stuff on stuff that I've been going with regard to that, because I've been trying to chew up my thought on it, and it keeps getting confirmed in the Bible with that.
Sure, I'd be happy to read your emails. Well, sometimes people say, are there animals in heaven? Let's take a vote. How many think there's dogs in heaven? How many think there are not? Well, I believe there are dogs in heaven, but no cats. How many likes of that? Cats are evil, so no. Well, I believe there are animals in heaven because there are animals in the Garden of Eden. I think that's what we're going back to, that the New Jerusalem will be a new heaven, new earth. And I do believe there are a lot of animals in Garden of Eden, not boys of me.
But not these, not the animals that die here don't go there.
My turbo is in heaven. My kids said so. I choose to believe they are. That's his stuff. But there's definitely animals. I think. Yes?
Have you heard of the place in Texas where there are dinosaur footprints and human footprints in the same place?
Good question. Glen Rose, Texas, and there's other places that they appear to be. I've read about it, and I lean towards that they are dinosaur and human footprints, but I'm not enough of an expert to say it. This lesson was hard. I had this much material I had to cut out. Lots of it. I could do another lesson on dinosaurs. It killed me when some of those stuff I had to leave out. But I and or Bill might know more, but the major creation groups, ICR and Answers in Genesis, don't support the dinosaur footprints with the human footprints. And I'm not 100% certain why, but it sure seems, it's definitely not a fraud. They dug up some granite, they found 2 different sets of footprints that appear to be human. Bill, you want to add to that at all? Do you know much about it?
From what I can read, they seem to be genuine. They're in like a riverbed, and they'll dig back the bank, and they'll expose these footprints in sandstone. Obviously, exposed to the air for the first time when they're excavating them, and they after time they degrade and fade away. But they take photographs of them, and it seems like from what I can see, the information that I hear, that they're genuine. But ICR seems to take the idea that they're hoaxes. So the guy who's over there, Carl Baugh, he seems like a very credible scientist, and I know some people down in Texas that have actually been on a dig and excavated these footprints. They didn't, the people I know didn't have the experience of excavating a human footprint, but they did find dinosaur footprints, and I think with the holes they get and everything, it seems like they are genuine. And there are other places around the world that also have human footprints with dinosaurs.
Got speakers on that. Okay, one last question, and we'll let you go. Yes?
When you say you believe there are animals in heaven, are there any places with things like that, or would they be reproducing that, maybe baby animals? As high as humankind, there won't be.
Well, my dad asked a great question. Is how old are you in heaven? If you die as a baby, are you a baby, or you're 15 years old? Question I can't answer.
How about in humans? There won't be any reproduction.
I believe there will, and this is just my idea. I'm not an expert theologian. The Bible says after the fall, Eve would what? Multiply pain and childbirth. So I believe there was childbirth before the fall, because it said it would multiply the pain after the fall. And so if the humans were reproducing, I would guess the animals were as well.
So in heaven, humans will reproduce.
I really don't know. I would guess perhaps, I don't know.
So there will be marriage there?
They say there's
No marriage yet. That's what they asked about the 7 wives. You have to ask if you're sitting next to a real Bible scholar there and Eric. I'll just pass the buck to you. These are good what if questions.
Yeah.
But I don't know. No. Good questions though.